One thing that we can definitely say right now, as it stands here on September 1st, 2015, when you go to the WWE.com website, you land on the home page, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a search box. As soon as you type in Hulk Hogan and you hit enter, nothing Hulk Hogan related comes up. Now, if you have the WWE Network, you'll still be able to see matches and all that. But when you're on the website, there is no Hulk Hogan. It's like the guy doesn't even exist. All right. Meanwhile, when you type in a person such as, I don't know, let's say Jimmy Snuka, well, by God, wouldn't you know it? Jimmy Snuka's profile pops up, memorable moments, articles, videos. There's no Jimmy Snuka merchandise, but you still get to type in Jimmy Snuka. Good segue. Jimmy Snuka! Time has caught up to him in a very, very bad way, as the man was arrested earlier today. I'm not really sure if you guys had heard about this, but let's give you guys all the facts. This comes from our good friends over at WrestlingInc.com. There was a news conference that was held in Pennsylvania earlier today announcing that the WWE Hall of Famer, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, had been charged with third-degree murder and a lesser included charge of involuntary manslaughter in the 1983 death of Nancy Argentino. While the Allentown Morning Call was the first to report that he's being charged, Sarah Casey of Lee Valley Live was the first to name the specific charges on her Twitter accounts. Now, according to Cassie, ongoing accounts of the news conference, Snuka is believed to be posting posting a $10,000 bond on a $100,000 bail right about now, with the surrender of his passport as a condition of his release. With Snuka undergoing cancer treatment, we told you about that a couple of weeks back, it was felt that incarcerating him would be an undue financial burden on taxpayers. The grand jury's findings will be released soon, but the district attorney noted that they cited Snuka's inaction in getting Argentino medical attention for her head injury. Snuka appeared before the grand jury, but he didn't testify, while several new witnesses did. So, you hear that? It's kind of like, what the fuck is going on right here? I want to kind of just back it up a little bit, give you guys a little bit of a backstory for those of you that may not really be familiar with this death and everything. But basically, Snuka, who'd been with the World Wrestling Federation, told police shortly after Argentino's death he had returned to the couple's Whitehall Township hotel room to find her unresponsive in bed. She was pronounced dead at the hospital several hours later. An autopsy was done, which determined that she died of traumatic brain injuries and had more than 36 cuts and bruises, and concluded her injuries were consistent with being hit with a stationary object. At the time, forensic pathologist Isidore Malikis wrote that the case should be investigated as a homicide until proven otherwise, according to a grand jury report released Tuesday, but the investigation went cold. Then, on June 2013, an investigation by the Morning Call of Allentown raised questions about the case. Lee County District Attorney Jim Martin told the paper last year that Argentino's sisters approached him after the story ran, prompting him to give the case another look. So that's how the ball got started on this again. The grand jury's report said Snuka had provided more than a half dozen shifting accounts of Argentino's injuries, at first telling paramedics he'd hit her during an argument outside their hotel room and that he struck her head on concrete, then claiming to police she slipped and fell during a bathroom break on their way to the hotel. The grand jury also said it heard evidence that Snuka beat Argentino in a hotel room in Syracuse, New York back in January 1983. Folks, just 4 months before her death, and repeatedly assaulted his wife Sharon in the fall of 1993. So even after Miss Argentino died, he just kept on rolling with the hits. I mean, literally. And again, Snuka, he is now living in New Jersey. He has been maintaining his innocence, saying the episode had ruined his life. Direct quote, "Many terrible things have been written about me, hurting Nancy and being responsible for her death, but they are not true," he wrote in his 2012 autobiography. "This has been very hard on me and very hard on my family to this day. I get nasty notes and threats. It hurts. I never hit Nancy or threatened her." Meanwhile, Argentino's sister, Louise Argentino Umpam, told the Morning Call that the charges came as a relief, especially the prospect that her mother, who turns 90 this year, may see justice in the case. "I think it's been a long road. They did the right thing in the face of all the evidence." Meanwhile, WWE has continued to express sympathy towards the Argentino family about their loss, saying ultimately this legal matter will be decided by our judicial system. So, keeping all that in mind, I can't help but, as I just am marinating on this information, I can't help but think about, what does Mick Foley make of all this? Because Mick Foley is one of those guys that has let it be no secret when it came to his career really starting. It began with him watching Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He's always told that story, right? MSG or whatever. Superfly on top of the steel cage come crashing down. It was that moment that he knew he wanted to be a wrestler. I'm very curious, and over the next week, I want you guys to do me a huge favor and let me know if Mick Foley says anything. I know he usually posts lengthy blogs on Facebook. Let me know if he says anything about this whole Jimmy Fly Snuka thing, because I'm just really curious, where his position is right now that charges have been filed. I mean, you guys got to admit that, yes, for the time that it was back then, and I don't want people to get all upset and everything of what's going on with Jimmy Snuka. I know there's going to be people that's probably going to be a little bit divided and all that, but there's one thing I want for you guys to keep in mind with regards to him being arrested. The first thing I want you guys to remind yourselves is, okay, this murder went down in 1983. Back then, forensic evidence was very limited, to the point that there would be many cases that would go unsolved, but there would still be the victim's clothing, any blood that would be collected, any other forensic evidence. It would be stored away so that when the time came and the technology got better, they could bring all that evidence back. And I'm telling you, there's been a lot of cold cases from the 80s and beyond that's being solved to this very day. That's just how far along our forensic technology has gotten. If you've ever watched CSI or you've watched an episode of Law and Order or whatever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You kind of have an idea. Or if you watch any of those shows on Investigation Discovery, aka the ID channel, all right? First 48 on A&E. I mean, there's all types of stuff that really gives you great insight into the whole forensic data collecting. So the first thing I want you to say to yourself is, okay, this crime went down in 1983. It was never closed. Keep that in the back of your mind. This case was never shut. It has been open all this time. It has been an ongoing investigation. So with each year that passes, the technology, it gets better and better and better. And then it gets to a point where, and this happens all the time, whoever the primaries were that would work that case, once they have exhausted all leads, unfortunately, some cases, there's only but so many hours, manpower, money, government money that can be put on that case before they have to move on. And that's eventually what had happened. And in a lot of times, in a lot of circumstances, those cold cases, although they're open, it just remains on the shelf collecting dust until a new team comes along. It lands on their lap. They look at all the evidence, and a lot of times they start from scratch. So this is probably what had went down this time around a couple of years back, since it had landed with these new folks back in 2013, the morning call of Allentown. Okay. So obviously something new went down. I mean, just the fact that Snuka was inconsistent with his story that he initially told the cops back then, I mean, that might be enough right there. Now, some of you might say, well, Lee, lie detector test, it should squash this, right? On the contrary, if you lied about something and you continue to lie about it day after day, month after month, year after year, well, eventually you're going to believe in that lie. So 9 times out of 10, you probably can and will pass a lie detector test, because you've been lying for so long, you actually believe that what you're putting out there, which is genuinely a lie, is the truth. So it happens. I think this go round, this is going to be a case we're going to have to continue to watch very carefully, because when it's all said and done, I think they got Jimmy Snuka. I think Jimmy Snuka is definitely going to be doing some jail time. Bear in mind, Argentino's family, they did win a wrongful death lawsuit against Snuka back in 1985. I want to make sure we stress that. And the way those wrongful death lawsuits work, I just want you guys to think about what had went down with Nicole Brown Simpson. All right. Think back to that. Now, remember when O.J. Simpson was found not guilty? I mean, honestly, there was just so many fuck ups with that case. The police tainting the crime scenes and all that. There was just so many fuck ups with that. They fucked up. They should have gotten OJ. They weren't able to get him. However, what was the name of the family? Nicole Brown Simpson. Who was the guy that she dated? Ronald Goldman. That's who it was. But the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, they felt that they had enough evidence to be able to go to court and basically file a wrongful death lawsuit in which they had sought, I hate to make it sound so tacky, but they were looking for a financial payday. And when it was all said and done, the jury, they felt that given the amount of evidence that was presented before them, definitely without a shadow of doubt in the jury's mind, there was enough evidence to suggest that OJ, in some shape or form, he did play a part in the deaths of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman. So with regards to Argentino's family winning the wrongful death lawsuit against Snuka in 1985, there was enough there for that jury to go, he definitely played some type of role. He knows more than what he's leading on, and that's supposed to be a payday. So those of you that's kind of like, why is Jimmy Snuka still running around and he's got all this stuff going on? Why is he doing this crap over here with, this independent wrestling company? Why is he doing this? This just kind of seems beneath him. That explains why. Okay. And for a guy like Jimmy Snuka, another question there. I wonder if he has some type of a Legends deal going on. I would love to know about that, but I'm curious. I'm very curious. What does Mick Foley have to say about this? What does his daughter, Tamina Snuka, have to say about this? I'm sure WWE is probably trying to protect her right now. They're probably trying to put her in a hush-hush mode. I'm sure that all the WWE superstars are probably going to be in a hush-hush mode, but I just think it's kind of funny not with what happened with the murders and all that back in 1983, but I just think it's funny that you can go on WWE's website, you can type in Hulk Hogan, you don't get anything, but yet you type in supposedly a murderer, Jimmy Snuka, he's in there. I would have thought that after the news had came about today with Jimmy Snuka, WWE would have pulled that shit off. The following is a YouTube exclusive, as shortly after we went off the air going into Wednesday morning, we learned that WWE has removed Jimmy Snuka's profile from their official website after the charges on Monday of involuntarily manslaughter and third-degree murder for the 1983 death of Nancy Argentino. His profile has also been removed from the site's Hall of Fame section. I can confirm that as of Wednesday, September 2nd, 2015. All that is correct. However, when you type in Jimmy Snuka, he still pops up. You can still read articles and watch matches, things of that nature. Whereas when you type in Hulk Hogan, nothing pops up. It's almost like the man doesn't even exist. One other thing that I want to stress to you guys is Bill Apter. He chimed in and he wanted to clear the air as far as what was going on with Jimmy Snuka supposedly being arrested, as many outlets have reported that Snuka was arrested at his home. I don't believe we ever said anything like that. We may have said he was arrested, but the legendary wrestling journalist Bill Apter, he took exception to this, posting a video on YouTube saying that he wasn't arrested at home, but after arraignment, of which Snuka and his wife went to willingly. Apter said that Snuka was arraigned, technically arrested, but immediately posted bail. Apter also mentioned that Snuka is now at home with his wife. So we definitely want to make sure we stress that, make sure the correct information is put out there for you guys. And then lastly, earlier today, the Allentown Morning Call had posted an article by Sarah Cossey going into the primary evidence against Jimmy Snuka in the death of Nancy Argentino that led to his indictment on charges of third-degree murder and a lesser included charge of involuntarily manslaughter. The information comes from the grand jury presentment, of which Irv Munchuk uploaded to his website as a PDF. There's 3 primary factors cited in the indictment, which are 1, the medical and forensic evidence from the autopsy report, 2, Snuka's many conflicting versions of what happened, 3, testimony about other domestic abuse incidents involving Snuka. The autopsy report was, for whatever reason, something that the district attorney's office had refused to release publicly for 30 years. The Morning Call found it in 2013 via the Argentino's family in 1983's wrongful death lawsuit against Snuka, again, of which they won a default judgment. The coroner ruled that the case was a homicide, citing that Argentino's had injury that was consistent with hitting a stationary object, but noting, including the state of her clothing, was consistent with Snuka's story of her slipping and falling outside. She also had numerous bruises indicative of what was termed mate abuse. Make sure you home in on that. Snuka has given at least 7 different versions of what happened. We pretty much had already rehashed all of this. So, nice update for you guys here exclusively on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to us so you never miss out on all the great content we do for you here on a weekly basis. Whether we are breaking news, doing reviews, or some pretty insightful interviews, we have a little bit of something for everybody. So do hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at the RCWR Show. Facebook, Infinity Wood Productions. That's with an E. Spell out 1, Infinity Wood Productions. And we will see you for our next live radio edition of the RCWR Show, which you can catch Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker.com. Of course, if you cannot check us out live, episodes will be available on demand for your respected listening devices, such as Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. We are all over the place. Use the keywords, the RCWR Show.